What up, guys? So today's question comes from Jason. He's curious as to whether or not the Chewster teaches white belts leg locks. At his gym, they don't teach leg locks until they're like blue belts, and then they don't even practice them. They don't roll with them until they're blue belts. And so his message to me was basically, do I teach white belts leg locks, and some ideas on that. So Jason, thank you for the question, bro. Yes, I teach white belts leg locks. I think as I've talked about this on the channel before, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made as far as avoiding injuries, right? Now, that might seem crazy to you, right? Because most of the time you think about giving a white belt a leg lock, it sounds terrifying, giving some new white belt leg locks. But the reality is, years ago, when we didn't train leg locks very often, which was very common back in the day, and I think it's still common for some gyms, we had way more injuries with leg locks, right? We had some really gnarly injuries from leg locks. And again, I did this because, and again, I'm not unique in this mindset that I had, but I thought that leg locks were inherently more dangerous back then, right? Because I thought, oh man, like they're dangerous. You can't feel them, when they're coming, and then they just pop, and you have no control of them, so you have to rip everything. And my first experience with leg locks was actually right around the time I started training. Me and my buddy, we would like come down in my basement and like wrestle with it. He was one of my old wrestling training partners, and he had looked up a video about how to do a heel hook. I don't know if probably didn't even see a how-to video. He probably watched it because he was really good at this stuff. He would watch matches and then like of MMA fights and figure stuff out. So he figured out how to do a heel hook off of, I think, an MMA match. We get to wrestling around. He sits back on it. I don't know what he's doing, and then he pops it because I don't know what a heel hook is. He doesn't know how to apply it slowly, and then I don't know when to tap, and so my ankle gets popped. I was sore for like 2 weeks. I think that's probably why I had this kind of fear of leg locks, because I didn't really know what was going on with them. Also, I've seen some pretty catastrophic injuries in my gym. One of the worst injuries I've ever seen with a knee is from a straight ankle lock. Doesn't sound like it belongs, right? You were probably expecting a heel hook. But here's what happened. So this white belt's caught in an ankle lock, straight up ankle lock, his knees right there. Instead of going forward and trying to put his foot on the ground, or maybe putting on the boot or something that you would do when you're caught in a straight ankle lock, instead of doing any of that, he like rips his body and twists, maybe similar to maybe how you would try to get out of a heel hook, right? You're going to start turning. Well, not so good, because you got to think one part of his leg is locked because the person has a vice grip on it, and then the other part of his leg can rotate. Well, the knee is here in the middle, and his knee was pretty shredded. Bad news, right? Another one was from a toe hold, where a guy was popped in a toe hold. They're going. The guy's caught in it. He should have tapped, but he didn't, and then pow! Sounded like a gunshot went off. Luckily, he didn't need surgery for that one, and he was able to come back in about a month. But still, a month off from training, not a good thing, right? So when we started focusing on leg locks, our injury rate just dropped. And again, we're not like a hardcore, super heavy leg lock gym, but we've got some good leg lockers here, some good leg lockers. And on top of that, we do it almost every week, at least once a day, one day per week, we will do some leg lock focused classes. Because again, I think it's important to keep it going all the time, right? And so what I found is that as a coach, when we focused on legs more from the beginning with white belts, we've had less injuries associated with leg locks. In fact, I would say that our leg lock injury rate is on par with the other submissions with the upper body, which is very, very minimal, right? Most of our injuries come from freak accidents, right? You put your foot in the wrong place, someone's sweeping you or something. That's usually where the injuries come from. But like submission injuries, very rare, right? Happens every now and then, and we have very few of them from leg locks now. And again, I think this is for like a few different, very common sense reasons, right? Number one is people know how to apply them properly, right? Again, going back to the old mindset that many of us had years ago, they would say, oh, you can't apply leg locks with control. Obviously, we know that's BS, right? Of course you can. And so when you know how to apply them with control, you can take your time and give the person enough time to tap, right? To let your training partner get the tap. It's no different than, say, an armbar. If you get someone locked out in a straight arm lock, right? If you don't know how to control the position, then yeah, you're going to have to pop their arm really quick. But if you have really good control of that in-range position when you're finishing the armbar, then you can take your time and literally hold them, and you get like a 1-1,000, 2-1,000 count, and then they have to tap, right? It's no different with a heel hook or a straight ankle or any of it. You should have that control. You want that control. That's what you want with a submission. And so again, when they know how to apply them, they have that control. The other thing is that they know how to escape properly. As I said, one of the worst knee injuries I've ever had in my gym was from a guy in a straight ankle lock escaping the wrong way. And so when you know how to escape properly, you can avoid those kinds of injuries. You can avoid twisting when you should turn this direction or whatever it might be. And then the last thing is that you know when to tap, right? So my student who was caught in the toe hold, he should have knew to tap. But again, it was my fault as a coach for not training him adequately. I should have taught him more with the leg lock, so this way he would have known when to tap, like when things are caught. Again, this is another thing that some people still hold this mindset about leg locks, that you can't feel them until they pop, right? Which is nonsense, because again, what other submission do we wait for stuff to tear or pop before we tap out? Like, none of them. I mean, unless for some of you guys are wild out there, so maybe you do, right? I've seen some of you guys train, or not seen some of you guys train, but I've seen people compete and they're just letting stuff pop. I'm like, live to fight another day, right? You young guys especially too. You may not feel it now. I've had to get on some of my young guys about this. They'll let their arms like pop sometimes and get pulled. You may not feel that now, but like stuff accumulates. And maybe right now you're 20, you don't feel it, but like when you're 30, 34, 40, all of a sudden, like you can't move your arm because you took too many pops when you were in your younger days, right? One of my coaches, he had to get bone spurs removed from his elbow because he was getting his arm popped too many times because he wanted to fight to the death with every submission. Anyway, with that said, you know when to tap, right? Because you get caught in something. And with a leg lock, for instance, or with the arm bar, the arm gets extended out and it's tight, you know to tap. The same thing's true with the heel hook, right? If someone gets locked onto that heel hook and you can feel that it's tight and you understand how escapes work and you know when you can escape and when you can't, then you know, oh, my escape options are out of the door, I'm there, tap. That's it. Right? And then roll again. And so when you understand those things, the whole injury risk just drops dramatically, because now everybody knows what's going on and there's no questions about what's happening, right? And again, you could say not teach the white belts leg locks, don't teach them ankle locks or whatever it might be, but the problem is that the internet is what it is and people will learn how to do them. And it might be an open mat and they're like, coach ain't watching, I want to try this leg lock that I learned in this BJJ instructional or this Instagram video or this YouTube video, right? So they want to go do it. And again, you're setting them up for failure with that. So again, I teach white belts heel hooks. Now, I don't let brand new white belts use heel hooks, but I still teach them how to do them and how to tap from them, how to escape them, all that stuff, because I want them to be experienced when eventually they do get the chance to use them. But, straight ankle locks and stuff like that, fine. Teach them from the beginning and put them into situational roles so they can get used to it. And again, I just think we're setting our students up for failure if we don't expose them to all the stuff they're going to face at some point. You don't want to be like a purple belt. Like I know the IBJJF, they don't let a lot of people do heel hooks, right? Which I think is silly. But again, if you follow that sort of thing and you never practice heel hooks until you're like a black belt or something, well, by the time you get to black belt, some of these guys are really good with leg locks and now you're trying to catch up because you spent the last 10 years avoiding them, right? I just don't think it's a smart thing. So now, Jason, this makes no difference with your gym, but you asked the question to me, so I'm answering it. So yeah, I teach white belts leg locks and that's it. So thanks for the question, bro. I'll talk to you guys next time.